about something, some of the thoughts of Joseph Campbell, and then some of the thoughts that I had myself on a subject that is very, commonly spoken of in churches called love, and try to dissect and see, just how far does it go and what it is, It's a very strange thing when you start moving in the realms that I move in and that many of you are moving in now. When you speak of love or you speak of prayer, most of the time you go to church, especially on a Sunday morning, people are speaking of praying and touching God and all of these things. But I always thought to myself, well, that's fine, but there's a problem. Heaven's up here, the earth is down here, and the two don't contact with one another. And it really, if you want to manifest love, then something has to happen up here. But how do you get up here? So then you can say, well, a prayer could be the does that look like an airplane? Prayer could be the airplane. It looks a little bit like an eagle that's on its way down, or a dead duck or something. But prayer could be the airplane that gets you from the earth up here to the sky. Okay? The problem with it is nobody knows how to fly, you see. And so what we do, we stay down here and we're saying all of these words. God do this, God. It's a scientific principle. Love manifests itself on the basis of a scientific principle. That's why Jesus' admonition in the Bible was persistence. You can't put a drill into the earth and get oil. It has to go down and down and down and down persistently over and over and over and over. It may take a year, it may take 2 years before you hit it. This is a scientific thing. There's nobody listening to you when you're down here saying these words. Absolutely nobody. Nobody hears anything. You have to be persistent, and you have to raise it and raise it and raise it. And your meditation has to be a consistent thing until finally you touch it. And then something can happen. It can't happen any other way, because there's no connection between that which we call earth and that which we call heaven. And both of those things are consciousness. They're inside of you. There is no heaven outside. There is no earth other than what we describe as the place where we live, or that which is up in the clouds. But inside of you there's a place. And so when we start saying, well, we want to get to a point of love, and then what do? Because religion has not learned how to fly and move from that which is the lower to the higher. It's enamored and it's filled with hate. You're experiencing it now. You've got people running around, shooting each other, blowing each other up, doing all kinds of things. And why? Because of the fact of religious differences. They're against one another. Here you have a bunch of Hasidic Jews riding down in a van, and some guy comes up and shoots them. It's all because of religion. And don't lose sight of the fact that the person that did the shooting was not representative of the Muslim community. The man is a literalist, a fundamentalist, just the same as the Falwells and the Robertsons and the Christian clan, the same kind of characters. The Falwells and the Robertsons are too sophisticated. They don't have to drive around with machine guns, see? What they do, they get into politics and they start sending the other guys off to war to defend, the Christian, to defend the country and all of these things. But these are fundamentalists. They're religious people who get involved in religion, and then this thing that they are supposed to be espousing love turns into hate. And that's what's happening all over the world, and that's what's always been the case of religion, see? So here then you have an essence. Let's take it out of the grips and take it out of the mythology of fairy tale types of religion and look at it from the basis of what happens. Where does this turn into this? Okay. Where does peace turn into war? And how does it occur? And it not only occurs on an individual basis, it occurs on a universal basis, it occurs on a national basis. Buddha said, you put off the wrong vibrations. You walk into your house and you're putting off bad vibes. You can start all holy hell or unholy hell breaking out in your house because bad vibes are coming from you. Or bad vibes are coming from somebody else. And Buddha said, not only can you do this in your house, but when billions of people are putting off vibrations, you can cause chaos in the universe, and you can cause all kinds of storms and hurricanes and all of these different things because of the vibrations that are going up, the electrical vibrations going up from billions of people putting out this thing of hate. So how does it happen? Where does it come from? If you look at page 588, there's a description of exactly where it came from. It's in the book of Isaiah. And it's in Isaiah chapter 14. And it's an interesting thing. You'll see some oriental type of ways of speaking and ways of teaching. In Isaiah chapter 14, verse 12, okay, what does it say? page 588. How you are fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. Okay? Cosmology shows this to be Venus, which falls to the horizon at the hour before dawn. That's basically what it is. But in this particular case, how you have fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. Okay? Now, in this case, Lucifer, which means star. That's what it means. The word Lucifer means star. And a star is a light that shines in the heaven. So bring the allegory, bring the understanding of the mythology. A light that shines in the heaven is that which comes from the higher realms of consciousness, which is understanding, which is enlightenment, which is wisdom. You think with 10% of your brain. 90% of your mind is dormant. Okay? So now we're talking about casting the net to the right side. We're talking about the stars that come out in heaven. We're talking about the light that would illuminate within you by that practice of meditation, by that practice of stirring up within inside of you. There's some great chairs right down in front if you'd like to join me down here. You know, it's always great. People in front get the best service, Joey. She did it too. Most people run the other way. That's great. Okay, so here, how you have fallen. But look at how he fell, or look at how it fell. Don't put it in the aspect of a person. Now watch the Eastern way of writing to describe it to you. Here's the reason that this fall took place, and it talks about the five senses of sight, taste, touch, smell, hearing. And here's how it's described in Eastern mysticism. Look at verse 13. I will ascend into heaven. You have said, I will ascend into heaven. That's one. I will exalt my throne. That's two. I will sit upon the mount of the congregation. That's three. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. That's four. I will be like the Most High. That's five. That's the five senses. When the five senses are brought from that which is the higher mind down to that which is the lower mind, the carnal mind, we have the five wills and the collapse of that which is righteousness, which is understanding, which is peace, and the collapse of love suddenly becomes an institution of war. I will do this. I will do that. It doesn't make any difference what you say. I could care less what you say. This is what I'm going to do, and war is going to start. A fight is going to happen. As soon as I will, and you won't, then there's going to be a fight. You see, you look around and people say, well, how can the Muslims be like this? How can they be so doggone ticked off? What are they so ticked off? Do you know what? You carry a Bible with you, and in this Bible, your God instructs your chosen people to go into the towns of the Muslims and the Shiites and all of these other people and take their land away. And kill their kids. And kill their animals. And go into every town and take it. And don't leave anything alive. And you can keep the virgins for yourself. That's what your God said. And so they say, well, why are they so ticked off? Do you think the Indians might have a just cause? I was totally brainwashed. When I was a kid, I used to go to the movies on Saturday afternoon. And all I saw was I couldn't wait for John Wayne to come with the cavalry, and they'd come over the hill and wipe out all the Indians. Nobody in those stories ever told me why the Indians were ticked off. They never said, well, you know, this is the reason the Indians are mad. All they showed me was these guys riding around in a circle with hatchets and screaming, and I just thought a bunch of savages. Nobody ever told me that we were robbing their home, that we were destroying that which was precious and sacred to them. I never knew that. So I was brainwashed by the government. I was brainwashed by the system to hate. And I hated the Indians, and I loved to see John Wayne kill them all. And I went out there, and we used to shoot, you know, and some jerk, he'd be the Indian, and the rest of us would chase him down the street and all of this stuff, because we were the cavalry, and that's what we did, because we were brainwashed by this great God-fearing Christian country. So, what could they be? Nothing but, oh, can you imagine the cavalry that I was supporting? Can you imagine if somebody broke into your house? And they're stealing your stuff. And you go to attack them, and the police come and say, hey, get your hands off of that person. How are they going to steal the stuff if you keep interfering? Just get away from them, or we'll put you in jail. That's exactly what we do with the Indians. So you wonder why people get ticked off. Remember what Mustafa said? You Christians and Jews have constructed a war god named Jehovah who said, take the land from the Muslims and the Arabs. And our side has constructed a war god named Allah who said, take it back. And you've been killing and fighting ever since. And now kids riding in a van have their heads blown off because of the hate and fear and violence that's conjured up in literal religion. And that's where it comes from. And so here's the story. The 5 senses. The 5 I wills. You see, when you take the 5 I wills, how does redemption come? Jesus takes the 5 wounds of hands, feet, and side, then it becomes the bright morning star, and everything is restored. It's all allegory, it's all mythology. But the story from Iran, the ancient story from Iran, is quite different now, but it doesn't talk of it this way. What it says is that God created humans. God created humans, his noble work. And God had created angels just a little lower than himself. But God said to the angels, you shall bow down and serve humans. This is the mythology, the story. And this Muslim story said that because Lucifer loved God and adored God so deeply that he couldn't bring himself to ever bow down before anything else. And so he disobeyed. I can't do it. I will not do it. Because you're the only thing that makes any sense to me. I won't do it. And the Persian poets answer the question. And listen to this. Listen very carefully to what is said. The Persian poets answer the question, by what power is Satan sustained? The answer, by his memory of the sound of God's voice when he said, be gone. So there's an image of spiritual agony, which is at the same time the rapture of spiritual love. I love you so much that I can't possibly obey you. Do you remember in the Bible, in the New Testament, Jesus told the disciples of his impending death? And Peter refused to accept this because Peter said, no, we'll do anything. Nothing's going to happen to you. We'll stand in front. You can depend on us. And Jesus spun around in Matthew 16:23 and said, get behind me, Satan. Because you savor not of God, but that which of man. In other words, what happens is love can be so deep that in essence it becomes destructive of a grander purpose. You have people who instruct you to hate other people simply because of what those people are. You have people who can't deal with the fact that another person in another culture may have a sexual orientation. You have the terrible attacks against homosexual people by religion. By religion. And I saw them on television and well, we can save the homosexuals. And I would pick up the damn phone and say, Jesus Christ, in talking about eunuchs in Matthew said, some are born that way. I said, how can you dare turn and address it? But you know what? Let me tell you something. You want to blow your socks off? Watch this one. Let me take 3 homosexuals, 3 Christian homosexuals, and you tell me what you do without them. Here's the first one. Leonardo da Vinci. He was not only a homosexual, he was an astrologer. And he painted the picture of the Last Supper with the guy John laying his head on the guy Jesus' breast. And he painted, what's the other? Judas as the 8th sign representing Saturn. What are you going to do with it? Then if you don't like them, take the picture out of the Sistine Chapel or wherever it hangs in Rome. If you're so damn prejudiced, rip the picture down. You got it on every billboard of the church. You got it in every prayer book of the church. The man was an astrologer and a homosexual. Let's take another one. Michelangelo. The Vatican is loaded with statues of nude men. In fact, there's one right in the Pope's private parlor. Michelangelo was gay. What do you do with that? Oh, I don't have to prove anything. I don't have to come up here and prove anything. It's none of my business. Whether it's my lifestyle or their lifestyle, it's none of my business. The point is, it's a fact. You look this up. I challenge everybody. I go on television and challenge everybody. What I say, you go to the library and look. I'll give you the third one. How many of you got a Bible in your hand? Do you have one? Hold it up for a minute. You know what it says in that Bible? King James Bible. Do you know that King James of England was a homosexual? What do you do with that? So there's three that are paramount in the formation of the church. The Last Supper, the statues, I think it's great, and the King James Bible. But the point is that these literalists, the fundamentalists who literalize this thing and find one thing and say, oh, well, we're going to purify ourselves, we're going to purify our country, we're going to purify our children, and they're going to cause hate and division. And I say, use the Bible, if you would, to take the load and guilt off of people. I had a guy write me, call me from New York. His name is, I won't give you his name, but he called me from New York. He says, please, how do I answer people about my homosexuality? So I wrote to him. I wrote him, and line by line, and I sent him the book line by line that Paul said, what Jesus said, and how that this must be used to lift the burden off of people's bodies. And it's none of your business. And it's none of anybody's business what you do. Okay? You're not hurt. The point is simply put that there's a beautiful, let me calm down, because there's a beautiful story of a Sufi Muslim. You know a Sufi Muslim? A Sufi Muslim is not a literalist. A Sufi Muslim is a Muslim who is a spiritualist, mystic. His name is Hajar. He was crucified in the year 922 because he said that he and God were one. Jesus said in John 10:30, I and the Father are one. You should say I and the Father are one. God and I are one. I don't care what they think. What do you care what religion thinks? The religion is at the point now in history of self-destructing. They are killing each other. They are bombing each other. Let them go. Let it destroy it. It's the most fearful, hateful, violent thing in the world. Let it go. Because then and only then, when the war gods die, can you come to the peace God who dwells within you, your very own self. And Allah said, his love for God was that of the moth for the flame. And he said that as a moth will flutter around the flame and get so close and be fascinated with it, touch so close to that flame, and then go to the next morning with its battered, burned wings and share the beauty of what it has found with all the others. And say, you can't believe what I have found. And then on the next night, the moth returns to the flame and looks and comes closer and comes closer, and then emulates itself and just consumes itself as it flies into the flame and becomes one with the flame, one with the fire. There is no difference anymore. I have become the flame. It always reminds me of the statement of the Bhagwan who said that this little drop of dew is coming down from the sky. It has lost the cloud that held it in its arms, and now it's falling, and it says, I'm dying. What's going to happen to me? It's like you when you lose religion and you lose that holy sense, and suddenly you're by yourself, and deep within yourself you're afraid. There is nobody to catch you. There's nobody to touch you. And that little drop of dew says, I am going to die. I'm all by myself. And it falls down out of the sky and falls into the ocean and becomes the sea. Now it can carry great vessels, and it can carve out continents because it is now one with the whole. And that's what Halash was saying. The moth has become the flame. That which was an insignificant thing has now become one with the whole, which is the universe. To be one with all there is. There's a German philosopher by the name of Schopenhauer who wrote a piece called The Foundation of Morality. And he asked an interesting question. And I always thought about it. Did you ever think, what would you do if you saw a car on fire and somebody trapped in it? Or what would you do if you saw somebody in a very precarious position? Something that, my initial reaction was, I wouldn't want to get involved. And I'll tell you, as a person, I would say, I won't get involved. Because I got my wife, and I got all this stuff I got to do. Wonder if something happens to me. And Schopenhauer wrote this, and it's something very interesting, and each one of you should think about it. He said, how is it that an individual can so forget himself and his own safety that he will put himself in jeopardy to save another person from death? Schopenhauer answers, something takes over in an emergency, that it is an instinctive recognition of the truth that he and that other person are in fact one. And by saving the one, I am saving myself. And what he says is, in these times, a person can find that they have superhuman strength and can lift a car. In these times, a person who would be scared to death and who is the wimp of the woods will race in and rip open a door and pull a person out of a burning thing. Not because they want to, not because they're courageous, but instinct just explodes within them in the same way that our little goose takes off from Canada, you know, and flies to Did you ever tell you the goose story? There's somebody, should I tell them the goose story? There's no people up there. There's the goose, and the goose are in Canada. You know, you'll love this story. The goose are in Canada, and it's starting to get cold, and they're all going around eating stuff. You know what gooses do. You know, and they're having gooses. One goose is getting goosed, and the other goose is goosing around, and all they're having their fun. And all of a sudden, one goose, but what is this? I heard something here. Boing! The pineal gland turns on in the brain. Boing! Uh-oh, I'm going to fly. And the other gooses say, their pineal hasn't lit yet. Will you stop? Every year you stop. Will you stop, please? Why don't you go to the pastor and ask him? Well, thank God they don't have one, you know. They say, well, we all have to stay here and pray about this. All of a sudden, all the gooses start getting their little pineals. Boop, 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 boop. And it's going to get starting to snow, and all they get their wings going, and they all start flying. Whoa! And they leave the other goose behind. Well, I hope you know where the heck are we going? I don't know. And the head goose, Murgatroyd, I don't know where we're going either, but we're going somewhere. And all of a sudden, after a few weeks of this trip, and they're all honking and honking, they all stop honking, and they hear down below them, la cucaracha, la cucaracha, yeah. Acapulco, Murgatroyd did it again. Down again. How come? Because something happens. Something that is not human, something that is coded into them, and they listen to it, and the same thing is coded into you. The difference is you have the choice of to listen or not to listen, and we have listened to the people who preach, and we have not listened to that which is within, that would lead us to the Acapulco of our lives. And so when something serious and something harmful happens to another person, that instinct turns itself on, and we are made to do. So then let me ask about Jesus. Is it really a ransom paid to Satan, or is it a willing act of self-immolation? Because by giving myself, I become one with you. I can't do anything for you until I become you. And I can only become you when I and you reach that higher place of consciousness, and there we drift in that nirvana, become one together. And that's what the Passover is. Passover is the lamb must be sacrificed, but what is it? This is the Passover. The constellation Aries, the Lamb of God that takes away the cold of the winter. And when the sun raises itself to Aries, as it's doing right now, it envelops the lamb. That's the burnt off. Did you ever wonder why God couldn't forgive people unless they burned animals in the church? That used to freak me out. I said, I don't want to be this. I said, I don't like that. I don't like to go in any houses or any places where it smells like cooking. If I was God, I would be a peanut butter God. And then they would have to offer peanut butter in the church, and I would say, aha, sweet smelling incense. Chunky! But not this. I couldn't understand why you have to kill animals. In the first place, I don't believe in killing animals. Second thing, that's not nice. That's not a way to help everything. And then I realized, what are we talking about? It has nothing to do with killing animals. It's talking about the burnt offering. When the sun consumes Aries the ram, then it sits at the right hand and summer comes. It's happening right now. The sun is moving to consume Aries the ram, and then you're going to see all the flowers bursting out, and all the grass start to grow, and all the ticks waking up, and all of these things are going to happen. Beautiful. But that's what it's all about. All life is renewed because of the sacrifice of the ram. And the lamb or the ram, listen to me very carefully, because I'm going to tell you the scientific principles. The lamb or the ram inside of your head is the pineal gland of the brain. Call it pineal gland of the brain. Jesus calls it the single eye. The ancients called it the single eye. They said, if your eye be single, your body will fill with light. Let me show you technically. Let me show you scientifically. Tell me what page Genesis chapter 30 is on, real quick. How many has a little Bible, not one of your own? Genesis chapter 30. How about verse 32? Genesis chapter 32. Okay, go to page 26. I want to show you something. What did I just say is the gland? What is Aries in your body? The gland that what lights up the spring of your life is called the pineal gland of the brain, right? Right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay. It's called the single eye by the ancients, the mystics. Now, I want to show you something very interesting. Look at Genesis chapter 32. Jacob sees God face to face. Genesis chapter 32, look at verse 30. And Jacob called the name of the place. Jacob called the name of the place Pineal, for I have seen God face to face, and my life is preserved. You don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar. Somebody said, well, it's spelled differently. I don't really care. It's a single eye and it says pineal. That's what it means. That's 2,000 years old. Come on, you know? But you should jump up and down about that and say, wow, he touched the pineal. Now we're learning from doctors that the pineal secretes melatonin, and melatonin is helping with sleep and all of this stuff, and I don't know what else. And it says in the back thing from the New York Times that there's drops of melatonin can kill cancer cells at their very beginning stage. And we're finding out that we touch the pineal gland. People are beginning to understand there are everything in this book has to do with the movement of the human body. What's the book of life? Is this the book of life? Is your name written in the Lamb's book of life? Does you ever hear the preachers say that? Is your name written in God's Lamb's book of life? Or are you a wretched sinner bound for hell in the flames? Ah, I see you, young lady, wearing your slacks and all of that fast stuff. Don't tell me. That's the way they go on, you know, carrying on like that, all this stuff. But let me show you something. What is the Lamb's book of life? The Lamb's book of life is something that comes out of the East, a very strange mechanism called Kundalini. Okay? And in Kundalini, there's a circular pattern of energy which raises itself up the spine, impacts the pineal gland of the brain, and then opens the right hemisphere of the brain. And that's the same thing as the sun does as it impacts Aries and goes to the right side and spring comes. Now let me show you. This is an inside of you on your back side where the spine is. The pineal gland of the brain throws open the right side. Go to Revelation chapter 5. Tell me what page it's on. Revelation chapter 5. 1005. All right? I asked some of your religious Christian friends, how many of them ever saw this and understand Kundalini? Chapter 5, verse 1. You with me? And I saw in the right hand, right hemisphere, of him that sat on the throne, which is the higher consciousness, a book. Written where? Within. And on the sealed with? Now, you don't have to be a Rhodes Scholar. That's the 7 chakras that run up the spine and impact the pineal gland of the brain. It's in the Bible. So let's say it. When you talk about Kundalini, and they'll say, how do you know? And you'll say, how do I know? The Bible told me. And it'll really freak them out. They can't deal with that. But nonetheless, it's there. So love then is a compassion. Love is also a passion. And it's like that emulation that the man talked about, an explosion from within. And each one of you must be the lamb. And each one must offer that pineal gland of the brain within you for the sacrifice. And then the Son of God must raise and consume it. And where is the Son of God lodging now before in an enlightened person? It lodges in the place of the sun, which is called the solar plexus. And when that energy then through meditation begins to rise as the sun rises, it rises up to the pineal gland of the brain, which is Aries. And then just like the sun in the sky, it sits in the northern hemisphere at the east, at the right side, and summer comes to your life. And all things become new. And this experience must be an earthly, physical one. And you must do it out of love. Love for yourself and love for others. And when you start touching that higher, it is a love, and it is not a love that says, give me this or give me that. It's a love that says, take me. Because the world is a mess. They're killing each other. The children are taking drugs. There's all kinds of horrors going on, and people are oppressed, and women are degraded, and people of different orientations are degraded because of this religion. So then take me and allow me to enter into this holy place, and then let that sun shine from within me, and let it touch all who comes within my presence. Let it help the animals so that they are not brutalized anymore. Let it lift up the children so they're not brutalized by the systems and fearful of gods and demons and and hells that don't exist. Let it set the women free who've been brutalized by religion, and let it bring all of us together in a oneness to know that we are all male and female, that God created us male and female and named us Adam, and let us be one then in this. Let us be one in the holiness of this new age, and it comes through this meditation. You must allow the sun to rise from the solar plexus in the same way that the sun rises from December the 25th to touch Aries. The Bible speaks of spiritual love, the love of the feminine principle within you. I want you to see two things, and then I'm going to read you something as we leave that was written in a jail cell that I found from Dr. Martin Luther King. He wrote it in a jail cell in Birmingham, Alabama, about what's right and what's love. I think it'll touch you. But before that, I want you to see what the Bible says about the feminine principle within you, which is the spirit of love, okay? Go to page 543. Proverbs chapter 4. And look what it says. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve you. Love her, and she shall keep you.
Yeah, what verse?
Proverbs 4, verse 6. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve you. Love her, and she shall keep you. It doesn't say love him, doesn't say love God, doesn't say love the Father. It says forsake her not. And then what would she do? As Jesus says, love yourself, not your ego. But the feminine God within your spirit, that which is the woman part of you, must then reach out. And look what it says in page 546. Proverbs chapter 8, verse 21. And what will come of this? That I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. That's the beauty of all of this. I honestly cannot understand, and for those of you who may be watching this on the television, I cannot understand how you can send your children into these places, how you can enter into these places in this continuous separation of cultures and separation of people and separation of races and separation, and the women sit here and the men sit here, and all this unholy horrors that have been perpetuated on people, and just not turn your back to it and say enough, but so many are, that this is a new age and I will not follow that anymore because I am an individual, I am a person, I am a one, and I am one with the energy of light. I am one with all of that which is nature and life. So I will no longer follow you. And that's the important. There's no members in here. Nobody belongs to this church. I want you to think the way you think. I want you to act the way you act. I want you to be free. You don't require my approval unless you come and touch me. You don't require my approval. And I don't require yours. And so that's the beauty of it. That's what Carl Jung said, individuate, and that's what religion can't deal with. They need you as a mob to all say, yes, and sit down and get up and raise your hand and sing What a Wretch Am I, and sing all of these songs. And they don't want you to know, say, hey, you know what Joseph Campbell said? He doesn't want to go into confession and say, bless me, God, for I have sinned. He wants to go into confession and say, Father, bless me because I'm hot stuff. I'm great because I am something special. And that's what Jesus said. The things that he did, you could do better than him. Take him up on it. Jesus didn't come to this earth to show the world how great he was. He came to this earth to show the world how great you are, and your kids are, and that little girl is. It's a beautiful life. Let it flow. Martin Luther King, from a jail cell in Birmingham, Alabama in 1963, wrote these words. When I was catapulted into the leadership of a bus protest in Montgomery, Alabama a few years ago, I felt I would be supported by the white church. Instead, some have been outright opponents, refusing to understand and misrepresenting my leadership. Others have remained silent. Called to be the moral guardian of the community, the church at times has preserved that which is immoral and unethical. And called to combat social evils, it has remained silent behind stained glass windows. If Christians do not become involved in the fight for freedom, then freedom will be seen as the result of humanism, and Christianity will be identified with suppression. He wrote that in 1963. And all he was saying is, this is what love is. When people really come together through the banner of nature, through the banner of the Mother and Father God, and reach out and say what is right and stand together. Not lifting a fist, not firing a gun, but just standing together. And look what he did. Look what he accomplished. And look what Gandhi accomplished. And they didn't fire a gun, and they didn't swing a sword. They just stood together. But they packed within himself, and they packed within themselves the power of the universe. And how do I know they packed within themselves the power of the universe? Because I read in this Bible that one day God took Moses to the mountaintop and said, Moses, you're not going to see the promised land. You're not going to be able to go in the promised land, but there it is over there. And the next day Moses was dead. And Martin Luther King strode to the pulpit of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, and he spoke to the people and he said, I've been to the mountaintop, and I've seen the promised land, and I won't be going with you. And the next day he was dead because he had made contact with that which is separated, and he had brought down the power of heaven, and he was a Moses, and all of that power culminated, and he never made a fist because a Buddha has no fist, and he went with an open hand, and he overturned a whole society, and he brought a system and a society to its knees through love. And all he was doing sitting in that cell was expressing, I thought you people would have come with me in Christ and in nature and in love. But Jesus thought they would come too. Well, when he said on the third day he would raise himself, nobody showed up. Not one. Except a lady who happened to be a prostitute. And she said, here I am. Thank you.